In December 1972, Apollo 17 landed in a valley called Taurus Littrow, and humans did something that still feels unreal. They worked on another world, then blasted off and came home. When the crew splashed down on December 19, 1972, it didn't feel like the end. It felt like the beginning of a whole new era. And then we stopped. No more boot prints, no more live TV from the moon, no more see you next year. So the question hits like a dare. If we went in 1972, why haven't we gone back since? Most people reach for one of two answers. Either we lost the technology, or they don't want us to go back. But the real story is more surprising, and honestly, more human. It's about money, risk, changing goals, and the invisible machinery behind every launch. Here's the first twist. Apollo wasn't built like a normal science program. It was built like a national emergency, fast, expensive, and political, because the United States and the Soviet Union were in a Cold War race for global influence. The moon was the finish line everyone could see, and when Apollo succeeded, the emergency feeling faded. That matters because big space projects don't run on inspiration. They run on yearly budgets, votes, and patience. Once the flag was planted, leaders started asking a brutal question. What do we get for the next dollar spent? So, Apollo becomes a story of timing. We didn't stop because the moon got boring. We stopped because the reason for going right then at that cost was no longer as powerful as it was in the 1960s. Let's talk numbers, but only the ones that actually changed the story. NASA's budget peaked in the mid-1960s, hitting about 4.4% of the federal budget during the Apollo buildup. Today, NASA is typically well under 1%. That one shift changes everything you're allowed to attempt. Apollo also wasn't just a rocket. It was a giant stack of programs. Saturn V, the command module, the lunar module, spacesuits, tracking networks, training, factories, testing, everything. The Planetary Society estimates Apollo cost about $25.4 billion in 1973 dollars, roughly $257 billion in 2020 dollars. And Apollo hired a nation. At its peak, it involved hundreds of thousands of people across government and industry. That's important because it reveals the hidden rule of moon missions. You don't just fund a launch, you fund an entire industrial world that makes launches possible. So, when people say, why not just do Apollo again? The real answer is because Apollo wasn't a product you can reorder. It was a temporary national mobilization. And after it achieved its goal, the country chose to spend its limited attention and money elsewhere. Now for the lost technology myth. Here's what's true and what's not. The Saturn V was real, and it worked. But the Saturn V assembly line was effectively shut down. The last Saturn V was assembled in 1968, and no Saturn V rockets beyond the original 15 were built. In other words, the rocket didn't vanish, the production system did. Tooling gets repurposed, suppliers stop making parts, engineers retire, contractors move on. The machine that builds the machine fades away, even if the drawings still exist. And NASA didn't pivot into nothing. They pivoted into different big projects. Apollo-era hardware helped create Skylab, the first US space station, and Apollo missions were canceled as priorities shifted. That's the key theme. The capability didn't disappear, it got redirected. So, yes, humans can build heavy-lift rockets again. We're doing it. But rebuilding is slow because it's not restored from backup. It's more like rebuilding an aircraft factory that closed 50 years ago, under modern safety rules, modern software needs, and modern supply chains. Apollo also trained the world to forget something. Moon missions are dangerous in a way that can hide until the worst moment. In January 1967, the Apollo 1 crew died during a ground test. How a cabin fire turned catastrophic fast. Then, in April 1970, Apollo 13 suffered an explosion that forced the crew to loop around the moon without landing. It's called a successful failure, and the story matters because it shows the real cost of deep space. You can't pull over, you bring your rescue plan with you. After Apollo, NASA's human spaceflight focus shifted to the space shuttle. President Richard Nixon approved the shuttle program on January 5, 1972, before Apollo's last landing even happened. The future had already been chosen: routine trips to low Earth orbit, not constant moon landings. But the shuttle era also came with tragedy: Challenger in 1986 and Columbia in 2003. After losses like that, space agencies tend to demand more testing, more redundancy, and more proof before flying crews again. And that stretches timelines and costs. Here's another hidden constraint. The moon is close in space terms, but it's still far. The average distance is about 384,400 kilometers, a gap so big you could fit about 30 Earths between here and there. That distance turns every small problem into a big one. And the moon is harsh in a simple physical way. Surface temperatures can swing to around 127 degrees Celsius in sunlit areas and down to about negative 173 degrees Celsius at night. No air, no weather to soften the extremes, just raw sunlight and raw cold. Now zoom in on the place Artemis cares about, the lunar South Pole. Some craters there are permanently shadowed and can drop to around negative 203 degrees Celsius. That's not just uncomfortable, it's a design challenge for batteries, lubricants, electronics, and even human survival systems. Then there's radiation. In low Earth orbit, Earth's magnetic field helps shield astronauts. Beyond that, you're more exposed to space radiation, and NASA treats it as a serious risk for long-duration missions. Going back to the moon today often means planning longer stays, so the radiation question grows teeth. And don't underestimate dust. Lunar dust is sharp, clingy, and easy to breathe in once it floats inside a cabin. Apollo astronauts reported eye and respiratory irritation after dust exposure. Small symptoms on short trips become bigger concerns when you're trying to live and work there. So the moon didn't get easier. We just got more honest about what it takes to operate there safely, repeatedly, and for longer than a few days. That's a totally different mission than Apollo. Now the robot twists. While humans weren't returning, robotic missions were quietly turning the moon into a mapped, measured, data-rich world. NASA's Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter launched in 2009 to help identify landing sites and study resources and radiation, basically building the user manual Apollo never needed. Missions like LCROS helped confirm that permanently shadowed regions can contain water ice, exactly the kind of resource that could support longer stays. Robots can take risks crews can't, and they can do it cheaper and more often. And NASA leaned into that with programs like CLPS, buying deliveries to the moon from private companies to move faster and test tech before crewed missions. It's a new strategy. Instead of one giant leap, lots of smaller shots on goal. So what is Artemis really? It's not Apollo 2. Artemis is NASA trying to build a repeatable system. Heavy lift rocket, crew vehicle, landing system, spacesuits, surface power, communications, and partnerships, so going to the moon becomes something we can do again and again, not once in a generation. But that ambition creates its own constraint. More moving parts means more ways to slip. Schedule and cost pressure is real across the Artemis stack, from rockets to ground systems to suits. Let's make this concrete. NASA says Artemis 2 is a crewed lunar flyby mission targeted to launch no later than April 2026, and there may be opportunities as soon as February, depending on readiness and the launch window. That "no later than" phrasing is a quiet tell. Schedules are constrained by physics and preparation. Artemis 3 is the one everyone waits for, the landing. This mission adds brand new capabilities, human landing systems, and advanced spacesuits aimed at the lunar South Pole. NASA announced updated targets on December 5, 2024, April 2026 for Artemis 2, and mid-2027 for Artemis 3. Why the delays? One public example, NASA investigated unexpected heat shield char loss during Artemis 1's re-entry. Artemis 1 itself was a major success, launching on November 16, 2022 and returning on December 11, 2022. And Orion hit re-entry at about 39,600 kilometers per hour. That kind of speed doesn't forgive good enough. And there's another hidden bottleneck: spacesuits. Major challenges and delays in next-generation suit development can block a landing even if the rocket is ready. You can't walk on the moon without the thing that keeps you alive. Finally, Artemis is also about partnerships. The human landing system effort includes commercial providers, and NASA works with industry to meet mission and safety requirements. That's powerful, but it also means NASA is coordinating across organizations with different timelines and hardware. Now we can answer the mystery in one honest sentence. We didn't go back like 1972 because Apollo was a sprint funded like a national mobilization, and everything after it shifted towards different goals, while the moon's real difficulty demanded more safety, more tech, and more budget than leaders were willing to sustain. And here's the final twist. Going back today doesn't mean repeating a few short landings near the equator. It means trying to build a lunar system that lasts. South Pole operations, resource prospecting, repeated deliveries, and crews that can return safely, again and again. That's harder than Apollo, even if we're better at space now. So when you hear, "Why haven't we gone back?" hear the real question underneath. Do we want to pay for a moon program that doesn't end? Because once you answer that, politically, economically, and culturally, the rockets are just the last step.